An amazing story from a former plural wife from the All-Red Polygamy group. Next on Polygamy, What Love Is This? Today, we begin a two-part interview with a former plural wife from the AUB, also known as the All-Red Polygamy Group. She's been on quite a journey before arriving to where she's at today. And so here to tell her story, I would like to introduce and welcome Karen Bradshaw.
Thank you.
And thank you for coming.
Thank you for having me.
You have a story to tell. I think it's a wonderful story. I'm glad you decided to tell it.
I'm excited.
Before we get into your story, though, would you explain why you want to go public with what you've experienced?
There's a scripture in John 8:32 that states it perfectly, that ye shall know the truth, and the truth shall set you free.
Uh-huh.
That's why I want to tell others of the truth that I found in Christ Jesus.
Okay, and it's only in Christ.
Only in Christ.
Only in Jesus.
It's not
okay.
in anything else.
And we do, when we find out the truth about it, we do want to get on the mountains and just shout it out, don't we?
Yes.
Just let everybody know
Yes,
what
it's
the
so
truth
freeing.
really is. So let's start at the beginning. Describe the dynamics of your home. The beginning, where you were born and raised. Were you born in polygamy? Were your parents polygamous? How did it all come about that you were in a polygamy group?
Okay, so my mother and father were in the LDS church, and then I don't know how they heard about the Johnson group, and they ended up joining the Johnson group. So my first memories are in the Johnson group.
So that would be the FLDS
Yes,
today.
FLDS.
Right.
And so I was blessed by Guy Musser, my baby blessing, and my father read it to me when I was 18. Anyway, when I was 18, and it said that I would have no sickness or disease upon me. And I just thought that was so interesting because I was never sick. So I don't know what to think of that, if God blessed me just because I'm a little baby. But I never got sick when all my siblings got chicken pox, mumps, measles. And anyway, but we started in that group, and then my parents, because they started getting controlling for some reason, and they said they didn't hold the right keys, that they went to the All-Red group. The All-Red group had the proper keys.
Okay.
And so
Did the Johnson group try to convince them to stick around, or did they just let them go without a?
I don't know
You
that.
don't know that?
I kind of doubt that they had much to say.
Yeah.
They just disappeared probably.
Oh, okay.
But they ended up moving to West Valley and joining the All-Red group. And my mother would have us go to the Mormon church, and then she'd have us go in the afternoons to the polygamous group. So we went to the LDS church in the mornings, and then the polygamous group in the evenings.
Now, to clarify this, the AUB believes the Mormon Church is still the right church, but they just don't have the priesthood authority that they claim they have, and that the All-Red group has that priesthood authority.
Right.
Whereas the other polygamy groups believe the LDS church is in apostasy.
Right. Like,
Right. So that's why they would let you go to the LDS church in the morning and then their church in the afternoon?
yeah. I don't know if they had much to say about it, because it's just something my mom and father let us do. Mm-hmm. So I don't know what the group actually thought of that. Well, actually, Rulon did say he wanted people to stay in the Mormon church as long as they could, until the blacks received the priesthood, and then they were pulled out.
And then that was it.
Yeah.
So did the LDS people know that you were from polygamy group attending their
No.
church? Okay.
No, not that I know of.
Okay.
Yeah. 2 of my siblings were baptized into that church, into the Mormon church, and
Okay.
they're little.
Okay. So you were raised in a polygamist home. Your father, did he have several wives?
My father, so it gets stranger, okay? My father, there was this other man, his name was, oh, I can't remember his name, but he had a daughter that was slightly handicapped, and he wanted her to have a baby. He told my father to marry her so she could have a baby, and he would do the sealing ordinance. And this man, I don't know if he was in the Allred group because I never saw him around. But there's a lot of strange guys when you get out there. So my father married his daughter, Janice. Her name was Janice. And but they never had children, thank goodness, because she was handicapped.
Yeah. So what did the father think of that? That she didn't have kids?
Well, it didn't last long.
That was the whole purpose.
My father couldn't stand her. And my mother told me that she was abused by my father. And it was just terrible the way he treated her. So he told, my mother said, you need to go home to your family. So my mother had her go back home. She was not very
Did your father have other
with
wives?
My father did have Claudette. She was I don't know what nationality, but she was a really good cook, and that's when I wanted to live polygamy, when I saw my mother and Claudette together, because they were like best friends, and they made it look so fun. And I wanted to live polygamy because
You wanted to have fun like that.
I wanted to have a friend, and Claudette would say, "I'll cook and you clean," and she would make the biggest mess in the kitchen when she cooked, but she made fabulous meals, and I didn't mind cleaning up after her.
So there wasn't any contention between them two.
No, I never
that you
saw
were aware of.
Never saw them
Did
fight.
she have a family too?
She had 3 children. My father lived in a separate home than us. So
Really?
the wives lived in one home with all the children. My mom had 8 children. We were all born a year apart, and she had twins. So by the time
Whoa.
my mom had 5 children, 5 children, that they were like 3 and under.
Yeah, oh
Because
my
of the
word,
twins.
Because of the twins.
And then she had like 2 more. So she had 7 children under the age of 5.
Wow. So he lived in a home by himself?
Yeah, I don't think he wanted to be around all that chaos.
Boy, talk about walking away from your responsibilities.
So we never really saw him, but when we did see him, he'd line us all up in a row, and there was always something that
Did
was
he know
wrong,
you?
and
Did he-
spank us, for something we did
Oh,
wrong.
that sounds like my childhood. So did he know who you all were, though? He didn't have any
yeah.
problem knowing who
Oh,
you
of
were? Did he know
course.
your birthdays and
I don't know.
and all of that?
He never celebrated Christmas, birthdays, anything like that. My mother would do that without him knowing.
When a woman gets married in the Allred group, do they take the husband's last names, or do they keep their name, or what do they do for their married name?
So when I got married, I wasn't allowed to take my husband's name.
Excuse me.
I wasn't allowed to take my husband's name.
So they don't. Is that generally the truth? They
Yes.
won't allow the woman to take the husband's name.
Yes.
Yeah, that's the way it is with the Kingstons as well.
Yeah.
They make up a name.
Yeah, that's terrible to make up
Yeah,
a name.
yeah.
They wouldn't do that. My mother. So for 8 years, I was 8 when my mom left my biological father, and she remarried a man in Montana.
In polygamy.
In polygamy as a second wife.
So she was the first wife first, then she left and married a man to be his second wife.
Yes, let me back up a little bit, because she actually, my sister Irene is number 8. I have 13 siblings. So I think number 8, she actually left my dad and went back to the Jeff's group, or the Johnson group.
So how old
And married
were
a man
you?
and got pregnant with him. And then she went back to the Allred group and got pregnant with my dad. I mean, it was so confusing as a child.
Oh, how old were you when your mother left your dad and
That first
married-
time?
Yeah.
I was only 3.
Okay, so you weren't understanding what was going on
Maybe
yet.
I was 5, because she's.
But you still were at an age where you wouldn't understand.
Yeah, I think
what
she's
was going on.
4 or 5 years younger than me.
Okay.
So no, it was very confusing
So
to
we-
end up at someone else's house and seeing a man kissing
But
my
you didn't
mom.
understand, though, what was happening.
I
It was
didn't.
confusing. But did you live in the Pinestill AUB area, or did you come back down here and live at that
Pinestill.
time?
No, that was actually in Bountiful. We moved to Bountiful,
Utah or Canada?
Utah. Bountiful in Utah.
Uh-huh.
We moved down there.
Okay.
And then my mom went back to my dad and got
To
pregnant.
your biological
Yes,
dad, yeah.
back to him. And I asked him about that, and he told me, well, we were married, and I wasn't going to get married again, so she just moved back in the house. And
Wow, talking about
And-
making changes. Huh?
just a lot of confusion for a
Yeah.
child.
Yeah. So how many total children did your mother end up having? Did she have any children with this other husband that she left your father to go be a second wife with? Did she have any children with him?
No.
Oh.
My father did have some other children, but not with any of the wives he married.
So in your remembrance in living in a polygamist home, was there peace? Do you have memories of a good, peaceful childhood? Or did there seem to be contention or arguing? Or
It was a fearful childhood, very fearful, because the end of the world was coming. We were taught that it could come at any time. My father used to gather us all together and make us hide under a blanket, and then say, when they come for you, if they stab you, you can't scream out. And he'd take a
Whoa.
broom and pretend he was stabbing us, and if we screamed or cried, then he would
oh, that's awful.
he would, like, it would be worse.
Yeah.
Like, he'd yell at us. Another thing that scared us is a memory I have is my mom would leave a lot of the times, and we would crawl up on our roof. So the cops were called, and we were taken away as children and put in foster homes for a few days until my parents could get us back out. So
Did they know you were polygamous when they did that?
I don't think so. But that happened several times, is that we were taken to the foster care.
Interesting.
And so I had a lot of fear with the cops coming. I used to hide anytime I heard cops, sirens. And because of the end times, like, my parents would talk with adults about the Russians coming and, what was happening with the other countries that are going to come in, China, Russia. And I was always afraid that I was going to be taken away.
Yeah. And I always wish they would come and take me away. I wanted them to. My parents always threatened us the same way, but I kept wishing they would. I wanted out of war. I didn't want to be home.
Yeah.
But so how old are you when you learn about polygamy? When were you 9, 10, 13? How
I
old were
think
you?
it was when we moved in with the Bountiful family, because he had 3 wives living with him.
And how old were you?
I think I was about 4 or 5.
So did you understand what polygamy was at that time?
Of course not. I just knew
But you
that I
knew that
had
it was
more
something
moms.
like that going
Yeah.
on. 4 moms, yeah.
4 moms,
How old were
yeah.
you when you understood what polygamy was?
Probably a little after that, We were required
But your
to
brain,
go to church.
the
Yeah.
brain can't comprehend until you get at a certain age of what all this polygamy thing entails.
Yeah,
it really
I think
is.
when I was 8, pretty clear about
About what polygamy was all about.
probably 8. Yes.
So in your growing up, would you, and tell as much as you want to about this, but there is in almost every polygamy group always abuse going on. Whether it's physical abuse or sexual abuse, we know there's emotional and spiritual abuse.
Yeah.
Were you aware of abuse, physical or sexual abuse that was going on in your home or people you knew?
So my father was very abusive.
Physically?
Physically. And it's hard for me to talk about publicly.
And talk only what you want to talk about. That's fine. Just the fact that he was abusive is...
Physically.
Is,
yeah, not sexually, thank goodness.
yeah.
I was kidnapped when I was about 6.
By who?
By some girls. My sisters and I were left at the park, and some girls had kidnapped us and molested us. They were going to take us home and lock us in their basement. That's what they told us after we got dressed. They'd got us all dressed, and they were taking us to their home when the cops pulled up and saved us from that. But because of that situation, it saved me from being molested by one of my mom's friends that were in the AUB. One of her friend's sons, who was 17, was molesting and raping his sisters.
Oh, my.
And I know that for sure because his sister told me personally that he raped not only her but her sisters.
Her sisters, too.
And he tried to attack me because I knew what he was doing. And I mean, he didn't try to attack me. He tried to make me take off my clothes. So I just ran and hid under the bed and started kicking him with all my might. And I'm sure the Lord was protecting me, and angels were around me because he tried and tried to grab me and he couldn't. And then he just left me alone.
Wow, good.
And I ended up seeing him in bed with my sister.
Wow.
Like an hour later, I stayed under there afraid. So I was always having nightmares about being attacked by, his name was Donald. And so Ronald McDonald, the McDonald man, I was always having nightmares when I was little about him coming and attacking me. I think that's probably why.
Well, is there a lot of that going on that you're aware of in the AUB?
I did have, yes.
Because
one of my
there's those who
sisters,
claim that it doesn't go on, and
of
it
course
needs to
it
be
goes
spoken
on.
out.
Of course it goes on. That's one of the big issues. When I came back into the AUB, okay, I might be jumping ahead too far.
Yeah, let's just take,
So I left. When my mother left, I ended up leaving the AUB at 16. But when I came back in 92, I was 22 years old.
So you left, did you join the LDS church?
Yes,
Or what did you do
I
during
joined
that
the
time?
LDS church.
And so you were
was
gone
baptized.
for, what, 6 years?
7 years, yeah.
7 years?
6, 7 years, yeah.
And then you decided to come back
Yeah.
to the AUB.
Because I was very afraid that I would not please God if I didn't live polygamy. Mm-hmm. And I wanted to please God.
So you had that indoctrination of the polygamy.
My whole life.
Live it or else.
Yeah, they taught you that,
Uh-huh.
So,
What scriptures did they use? Because I know they use scriptures. They pull it out of context. They'll twist it to apply to a situation. That will be the foundation for why you should live polygamy. What scriptures do you remember that they used to do that with you?
I don't really remember. Oh, 132.
Abraham,
132.
Well, that's not the Bible, though.
Oh, in the Bible?
I'm talking about the Bible.
So in the
'cause I
Bible,
always use
Isaiah,
Abraham and
Isaiah 41, where it says 7 women will take hold of...
4 verse 1, yeah.
Is it 4 verse 1? Yeah. So 7 women will take hold of one man, and beautiful will be
Did you ever read the context
Zion.
of that?
So no, I don't.
You still haven't?
I still am confused by that
Oh,
one.
well, we'll talk about that. Because that's not talking about living polygamy at all.
That was, yeah, in my mind. I even talked to my husband about that. I'm like, how can people not believe in polygamy?
Yeah.
It even says it in Isaiah.
Yeah.
That 7 women will take hold of one man and say, we'll take care of ourselves, and you just let us be called by your name. The funny thing is I could never be called by my husband's name.
Right. There you go. See? But,
And that's all I wanted.
The context of that is war. Because there's so few men left after war. That there's going to be so many women compared to the men left after this time of war. God is warning the Israelites, straighten up your act, or this is what's going to happen. It had nothing to do with living polygamy.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah, and then, of course, Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, Solomon, all of them lived polygamy. But they told us the prophets of old have lived this, and they're the more righteous of the earth. So the more righteous of the earth will live it in the last day. That we were more righteous than others because we were living
Yeah, we
it.
were told the same thing too. I saw my mother's misery, and I couldn't put it together why it was so wonderful to live polygamy, and yet I saw my mother's pain and misery and tears and loneliness, and I couldn't connect it. How can that be, rejoicing and fun? It wasn't.
Well, with my mother, she was very positive all the time. I never saw her. I don't even remember my mother crying when I was little. She was so happy and full of love. And I asked her why she joined polygamy, and she said because she was told if she didn't do it once she heard about polygamy, she would be damned.
That should be damned, right. So you came back after being out for 7 years.
Yes.
Is that when you got married? Is that when you became a polygamist wife?
Yes, that's when I became a polygamist wife.
Did they choose your husband, or were you able to choose your own?
So I chose my husband. My brother actually kept telling me, you've got to meet this man. I'm building a house for him, which I thought, oh, that would be wonderful if I could live in a home and not a trailer. Maybe I would like to meet this guy. And I'm like, how many wives does he have? And he's like, he's got 2 wives. And I'm like, oh, that's not too many. I might be able to handle this. And I said, how old is he? I don't know. Just meet him. So I met him around my birthday. And in June, this is 1992. And I remember it was my birthday because I was like, this is cool. I met him on my birthday. And we hit it off. A very sweet, gentle man. And I heard him a few weeks later pray in meeting. And I thought, I want to marry someone like him. I loved how gentle he was.
So did he have a peaceful home with his other 2 wives, or do you know?
Well, of course I know. I lived with him for 22
No,
years.
did you know it at the time?
Oh, I didn't know at the time, but no, it wasn't peaceful. But I didn't know that.
Yeah.
It wasn't peaceful. But I...
So you became his 3rd wife.
So, yeah, we kind of courted in September, that was June. In September, I told the prophet I would like to get to know the family because I'd become friends with his wives, and then we formed I just loved them, and they loved me, and then I could see they were trying to push or get me to know him. Like they would put my chair next to him, and I was like, oh, we're not even courting. I shouldn't be doing this. So I'd pull my chair away. And so I went and asked about him. And what happened?
Did the prophet the leader have to give his okay for it?
Yes, so I called him. The prophet was Owen Allred at the time. And I loved Owen. I just loved him. I called him and I said, I'm really interested in this man. And he said, I said, can I see him, visit him, get to know him? He's like, yes, you can. And I called him 3 times because I just felt sick inside, like he's so much older than me. Because I just asked about another man a few months before, and he was about his age, and he said, he's too old for you. So I was like, why isn't this man too old? So I kept calling him, you sure? And he's like, yeah.
How much older than you?
He's almost 20 years.
Whoa.
Yeah,
Okay.
a lot.
Well, now, in polygamy, though, that's not unusual, so.
Yeah. And I think I was looking for a relationship with my father. I really do. Because I never really had one with my own father.
Yeah,
Yeah. And so I married him, and I went through the AUB, through the ordinance building, got my garments, and he was so worried that I wouldn't want to wear them, but they told me I'd have to wear them all the time. I could only take them off when I showered.
And it might surprise some people from the Mormon church that some polygamists do wear the garments.
Oh, we wore them all the time,
Yeah.
and it was really hard for me because I didn't have that connection with my husband. We had to wear our garments all the time.
Yeah.
Even with intimate moments. And that was really hard for me. And
Did you ever look in the Bible to see if God ever commanded those garments?
Joseph Smith, I thought, did. So
Oh, yeah, he's not God. No, I just wondered if you ever did. If you ever got
I never
curious to
thought of
read in the
that.
Bible to back that up, to those garments, which are so. Anyway,
yeah, bondage.
Yeah.
It's so much bondage. You know.
so you married your husband and you started a family. We're getting close to
Yes.
the end of the first part. This is going to be a two-part program because she's got quite the story to tell. But so you got married and.
I got married, and I had, there's some stories I'd like to share with you. So I wanted to leave him like on our honeymoon.
Oh, that was quick, huh? Was he abusive verbally or
So
otherwise?
as soon as we were married, we went on a honeymoon, which was wonderful. But there was something that happened that just broke my heart. I was not feeling well 3 days into it, and I just wanted him to hold me, and I just said, if you're hungry, because it was a dinner time, and I thought, oh, he probably wants something to eat, and I'd been making everything. I said, honey, if you're hungry, please just get yourself something. I'm just not feeling very well. And I was laying on the bed, and he started yelling at me that I wasn't going to fulfill my wifely duties. And
That's wonderful, isn't it?
yeah, that generation 20 years before me was more of the women serve the men. And it fits perfect into polygamy too. The women serve the men.
Right.
So that was hard. That I wanted to get in my car and drive away and never come back.
And did things get better, or did they just steadily get worse?
Oh, they got worse.
Time went on.
Yeah, he withdrew from me because I withdrew from him. So the first 8 years were, I wanted to leave him like all the
So
time.
polygamy wasn't as great as your mother made it look like it
Oh,
was.
no, it was not. It was.
Did the other wives treat you well?
Sometime. Well, at first we were the best of friends.
Yeah.
But then jealousies arrived once babies start coming, and
Yeah.
you know, I think it's hard for women one of the women couldn't have any kids. She had one, but then she couldn't.
It'd be
And
hard, yeah.
I loved her dearly, but I even offered to give her one of my children.
Whoa. Well, we're out of time for this part one. We're going to finish Karen's story in part two. So stay tuned. Watch for part two as it comes up next time on Polygamy. What love is this?